Interrupt the flow for a minute because we have another question tonight. It comes from Hayley Crichton.
Yes, my question is for Christopher Hitchens. With many voters using a politician's religious persuasion to influence their vote, do you expect to see in your lifetime an openly atheist politician be appointed to the head of government, for example, for Australia, Britain or the United States?
I'm not going to let Christopher answer this immediately. I'd rather throw it around the panel first. Frank Bennett.
I think undoubtedly. I mean, perhaps not so readily in the United States, or if in the United States the presidential candidate were atheist, he or she would probably still proclaim some religious conviction in that that's part of the United States. But I think here in Australia, whether or not one of our political leaders, I would think, was an atheist or of a religious persuasion, I think is almost an irrelevance to the Australian community.
OK, let's hear from Anne Henderson on that. I mean, I can't think of any atheist prime ministers, Australian prime ministers to date. You might answer. Certainly not openly
atheist. Gough openly proclaimed he was a believer, but anyway, it's not so much whether you're an atheist or an agnostic or a believer, it's what you say to the people you are. I find it interesting at the moment, and I wouldn't have thought it would have happened in the 1980s, that all leaders of countries in the West seem to want to go to church every Sunday. Christian churches. It was interesting that Tony Blair wouldn't take on being a Catholic. I think is he considering it now?
He's done it.
He became a Catholic now after he left his position as Prime Minister. The problem with democratic politics is, and spin and 24-hour news and whatever, the person who inevitably comes to lead the country, and I think that questioner had it right, is going to have to reflect the strength of belief in the country itself. So if you went around, like Christopher, bagging all the churches and anyone who believed, I think it'll be a long time before that happens, and I would be very surprised if it ever did happen. You could be an atheist, but I don't think you'd go around telling everyone that you thought everyone that was a believer was an idiot.
Sally Warhart.
I think I think there's just no way the United States...
Again, scant applause for a cheap point. It's encouraging.
I think that there is no way the United States would elect a president who was not a practising Christian of some sort in my lifetime. I just cannot see it. I mean, interestingly, they were ready to elect a woman, and I think they would have if there hadn't have been an Obama there, but there's just no way. In fact, I think that's probably going backwards in American culture at the moment. Australia, I don't think people could care less.
Christopher.
Well, my only point would be, I'll make a quick point about the United States. It's a good thing that atheists are not banned from holding the office, because we would have missed Mr. Lincoln, for example. And in my opinion, Mr. Jefferson and one or two other people probably worth having. But as late as in England, the life of James Stuart Mill, in America, the life of Benjamin Franklin, there were quite well-known, publicly secure, confident, professional thinkers who didn't think it was advisable to let people know what they thought in public, because that's how dangerous it could be in a pious regime. And it seems that, and all people of faith can apparently congratulate themselves upon it, that faith still demands professions of faith by people who don't hold it that are by definition hypocritical. So congratulations to religious opinion for bringing that beautiful thing about in what's supposed to be a secular democracy.
OK, no doubt we're going to come back to religious questions shortly, but you're watching Q&A, the unpredictable program where you get to ask the questions. If you'd like to ask a question in person, go to our website, register to join the studio audience. We'll change subjects now for a while. Next question comes from William Mackenzie.
Is great talent an excuse for paedophilia? What are the panel's opinions on the Roman Polanski situation in Switzerland and America at the moment?
Waleed.
Can someone explain to me why... I actually don't understand the argument that he shouldn't be brought before a court. I just don't understand it. I'm happy for someone to convince me.
Well, there's an argument in France. He's very talented, so he shouldn't therefore face trial.
No, but have you caught up with the news? It's all changed. It's changed today, which was interesting. The French have backed off. Hillary Clinton has said it's a legal matter. The Polish leader, I think, has backed off, even though he's married to someone who's supporting Polanski. And a Hollywood serious communicator has a blog or something where the anti-Polanski responses are running 100 to 1, and the New York Times has come out and argued against him, which is an interesting phenomenon. So maybe it's changing.
Can I say this?
I don't know why it would be interesting. I mean, I just can't believe they wouldn't argue that he should be tried. I was reading his autobiography last night, and Polanski's account of, making love to this young woman on Jack Nicholson's couch. It was just
So why has it taken so long? That's a
because
reason.
he ran away.
That's where the talent comes in. Rem arcu cetagistes, they say in Latin. You touch the point with a needle. He's already had the rewards of being talented. 30 years on the lam after, I'll say it directly, fornicating with and sodomizing a 13-year-old to whom he had given narcotics to lull
which he
her.
pled guilty.
Now, excuse me, we do have our standards, even those of us who don't believe we're being supernaturally supervised.
Although the really sad thing is that this woman has come out and said that the trial by media that she's going to have to endure in this is she believes will be worse than the actual crime, which is it's a really sad and terrible tale.
But that's his fault too.
That's
yes,
absolutely it is, and he still needs to be tried. But it's awful that she's going to have to suffer. So she doesn't want it to define her whole life.
For discussing this,
and yet he has to be tried.
But it was his lawyers that brought this back into the arena,
Mm.
and so in a sense this has been all brought about because late last year his lawyers tried to get through a loophole in the law to have his charges dropped, and of course that then set the prosecution out and running.
Can I make a point and a sort of admission here? And I'm almost surprised. I'm almost surprised by the admission, which is that it's a simple one, really. That I've actually been to see several of his films in that period. I've watched others on DVD, and when you think about it carefully, is that somehow supporting it?
You mean we'd have been deprived of the films if he'd been nabbed in the first place?
Not at all. I'm simply saying I wonder why I didn't think about this at the time.
Oh, well, because we're all capable of keeping 2 sets of books. I mean, that's part of our nature. Well, I can see that I'm not the only one. Just for discussing this subject, a couple of years ago, my magazine, Vanity Fair, was sued by Mr. Polanski from Paris in London, not in America, where he thought the jurisdiction would be easier on him. He didn't even have to appear in person, because he thought that might be risky. He made a video deposition. We claimed he had no reputation to defend. He walked away with a lot of our money on a libel judgment, saying this couldn't be discussed. So I would say, screw him. And I would add, screw him for a chain.